Breaking news. It's happening. The biggest hoax in our lifetime. We're taking a short break from the seasonal content to bring you a hot off the press news about the 3 million pages that was just released. Are you ready to go down the final rabbit hole? Unless you were sleeping under a rock this previous weekend, the Department of Justice managed to find those pesky files that were on the desk and then magically disappeared. They decided to release 3+ million pages, images, and videos of our favorite James Bond villain, Mr. Epstein.
The most important people to have stability and consistency would be businessmen. So he formed this trilateral commission of businessmen and politicians from three.
He's literally talking about how they made basically the Illuminati. So you literally have, so remember when I said this is like a dev video? What the It's literally just a dev video. Alex Jones was right about everything.
This is how the normies are reacting to it now, and here's how Orange Man responded.
Some kind of gathering of top advisors this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation.
I don't know. I could ask you that question. I don't know of it, but I think here's the man right here.
I saw a report today, and it's completely fake news. We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation, and I think the reporter who reported it needs to get better sources.
Look, the whole thing is a hoax. It's put out by the Democrats because we've had the most successful 6 months in the history of our country, and that's just a way of trying to divert attention to something that's total bullshit, okay?
J.D. Vance calls it fake news and that they're not going to talk about it. DJT says the whole thing is a hoax. Well then, that covers it. No more further questions. Also, poor Tim Cook from Apple having to have his fiscal report interrupted by these rude journalists. But we the people believe there is a lot to cover from these files that is necessary going forward, as this revelation to the people plots the whole map of the network and what they're actually up to. Hold on to your papers, fellow scholars. We are going in. In December last month of 2025, the DOJ gave us a redacted appetizer of what was to come. Thousands of documents covered in black tape, which unironically the internet found out wasn't actually real black tape, but just a layer on top of the text that they could ignore by just copying the text underneath and pasting into a Word document. And last Friday of January in 2026, the DOJ released a bombshell collection of over 3 million pages with lots of incriminating evidence. When we look at how many cookie jars he had his hands in, a network starts to appear. A truly gifted multitasker juggling so many things with so many people. The Indian Prime Minister was in contact with Epstein where he plotted against the US people. He tried to make Tony Blair the overlord of the Middle East conflict. Prince Andrew is mentioned doing very violent acts towards children, and drama between Epstein and the current UK Minister Starmer. Keir Starmer received emails between Peter Mandelson and Epstein the day before he defended him at PMQ. Doing business with Emmanuel Macron in 2016 and in 2018, the emails escalated to Macron asking Epstein for PR and advice after becoming president. U.S. intelligence assets shot a Mexican judge to protect the trafficking rings, with 7 other FBI agents also shot while investigating. Marina Abramovich helped set up the Lost Children and refugee groups in Ukraine during the war, where allegedly they smuggled them to Epstein. In another email to Rothschild, he discusses the coup in 2014, quote, "Ukraine upheaval should provide many opportunities, many. There's connections to Chuck Schumer. Woody Allen is mentioned about attending a convention in Paris. Mentioned in the files is the man himself interacting with a previous Pope, John Paul II. A hacker attending DEF CON mentions on X that they used to play a game called Spot the Fed, One man that stood out to him the most was an Italian hacker that worked for Epstein. Maxwell's dad, Robert, got killed after trying to blackmail Mossad. In many emails, it is clear Bill is both mentioned and talked to by Jeffrey. In another email, it mentions Bill and Kathy Remler participating in orgies. An email marked Re Clinton, it mentions a copy-paste of Tony Blair's orgy. Several names comes up: Trump, Weinstein's famous massage, Prince Andrew, Dubin, and Staley. In one email, the real name of George Soros is revealed to be Georgy Schwartz, owner of Open Society Foundation, used to fund riots in the US to destabilize the political climate. Actors and celebrities keep popping up with mentions. Out of the blue and totally unexpected, Nicki Minaj goes full Britney Spears and Kanye West on X, saying, quote, "Your favorite artist has been practicing rituals in a satanic cult where they take babies from other countries and mutilate and kill them as a form of blood sacrifice to their god. When your master is Satan, you must constantly shed blood." In another post, she says, "They're flying in immigrants to vote because they reneged on all the promises they made to African Americans and can't get their vote by default. They're causing distractions in the streets to distract you from the billions they stole from taxpayers. And again, as they do their ritual tonight, and yet again, are you all understanding that these people have been sacrificing children as a way of gaining and maintaining power? Maybe I should discuss the brainwashing techniques they use." This one can be ticked off the bingo card. I did not expect this reveal so early in the disclosure. Several prominent Australian figures were exposed in the files. At the same time, we catch Australian government donating money to the Clinton Foundation from 2006 to 2014. Are you following so far? What we can gather from the emails we've looked at is that Jeffrey was a very powerful asset in the cabal's secret blackmailing network with Mossad, compromising previous and current ministers sitting in various positions around the world in different countries. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Before we continue, viewer discretion is advised. This is about to get a lot worse. In another email, Epstein says to Peter Thiel that he represents the Rothschilds while trying to arrange meetings and inviting him to the island. Another email mentions Hitler living in a shelter funded by 3 wealthy, funny hat people families. In another email from 2014, Jeffrey says to Thiel, "Imagine if this mess is what Obama really wanted. Iraq, Iran, Libya, Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, Egypt. We would have to admit a strategy brilliantly executed," implying that whoever Jeffrey worked for was interested in destabilizing these countries. The uncensored AI user then wrote an interesting perspective. If J.D. Vance is Peter Thiel's guy, then J.D. Vance is Epstein's guy, and if J.D. Vance is Epstein's guy, then J.D. Vance is the Rothschild's guy. In an email from 2017 written to Jeffrey, it mentions use of CIA airplanes to transport prisoners to Guantanamo Bay, which then user Mike Benz pointed out he used CIA airplanes in the 1980s, 1990s, and in 2017. Searching through the whole released file, we find the Rothschilds mentioned more than 12,000 times. The Dalai Lama is mentioned in the emails. ISIS and Al-Qaeda are assets of the Mossad. Several emails talk about child transport from Kosovo and Thailand, with one email saying 1 million children is a massive pool to tap into. Some Anons start remembering a whistleblower thread about a 4chan user who worked at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. The post says that Epstein's body was most likely switched out as they tampered with the camera recordings. A Harvard professor, Martin Nowak, is exposed as an Israeli spy. Another email mentions kidnapping children from Turkey, Czech Republic, and other European countries where they don't speak much English. A price list of interesting drugs sold at the island is released. Emails mentioning victims says that the FBI agents practice witchcraft and Satanism. An email from a victim sent to the FBI describes a building in Richmond, Virginia, where the top floor has a secret door and crawl space in the ceiling. 10 days before Jeffrey died in the jail cell, he wrote a list for Steve Bannon, executive and former White House chief strategist, and sent it to himself. In the email, he mentions Mandelson, Barnaby Summers Watson, Axel Botstein, Karim Terji, Pritzker Edelman, Seth Lloyd, Martin Novak Minsky, Tara Suskind, Strominger Krause, Hopkins, Randall, Koslin, Gardner Gates, Thale, Hoffman, Hoy Soniowski, Sheldrake, Suzelberger, Jess Staley, Josha Bach, Yoi Ito, HBH Burge, Miro Anas Rafat, Sultan, Nathan Feigenbaum, Ramachandran, Goldberg, DiMaggio, Shritakas Brockman Hillis, Kaufman, Seligman, Gould, Sachs, John Kerry, George Mitchell, Mandelbrot, Chomsky, Barak, Zagat, Nathan, Brian Green, Yao, E.O. Wilson, Prince Andrews, Jagland, Clinton, Pastrana, Richardson, Leahy, Jarecki, Schumer, Ranieri, Wahid, Mongolia, Gambit Ehud, Jack Lang Woody, Churkin, Sergey, Remler, Weingarten, Amabani, Rothschild, Dersh, Ken Stark Karp, Dubai Castro, Popel, Queen, Press King, PM, Mandelson, Balier, Met Middelpfaffert, Gergen, Melusine Margarita Ovitz, Barak, Mabuto, Khashoggi, and Rockefeller. When we run these names through AI to find out their connections and companies, we find a lot of dirt. Peter Mandelson met Epstein in 2002. Emails show Mandelson lobbying Tony Blair to meet Epstein. Axel Botstein, or Leon Botstein, met Epstein multiple times, and Epstein donated $150,000 to Bard College. Terje, via the Rud Larsen, a UN diplomat, allegedly received $650,000 in donations. Penny Pritzker, Hyatt Hotels executive and Obama Commerce Secretary. Martin Novak, Epstein donated $6.5 million to NOAC's program closed after the Epstein scandal. Martin Minsky, MIT professor, died in 2016. Ratan Tata of Tata Group. Andrew Strominger, Harvard physicist, Epstein-funded black hole research. Lawrence Krauss, Arizona State professor, Epstein donated $250,000. Nancy Hopkins, MIT biology, donated to Hopkins Lab. Stephen Koslin, Harvard psychology, funded by Epstein. Howard Gardner, Harvard psychologist and in education, funded. Bill Gates donated $2 million to MIT via Gates. Peter Thiel, PayPal co-founder, Clarium Capital, Palantir, Founders Fund, Thiel Capital, Valar Ventures, and Mithril Capital. Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn. Steven Sinofsky, former Microsoft executive. Arthur Sulzberger, New York Times publisher. Jess Staley, Barclays CEO, JP Morgan executive. Emails shows lots of coded messages. Joy Ito, MIT Media Lab director, funded by Epstein. Edward Feigenbaum, AI pioneer. Antonio Damasio, USC professor, neuroscience, funded by Epstein. Nicholas Christakas, Yale sociologist, funded by Epstein. John Brockman, literary agent, Edge Foundations, hosted Epstein-funded dinners. Danny Hills, inventor, funded by Epstein. Martin Seligman, UPenn psychologist, funded by Jeffrey. John Kerry, former senator, secretary of state, donated to by Epstein. George Mitchell, former senator, accused by Jeffrey of abuse, stayed in Epstein's apartment after he got convicted. Benoit Mandelbrot met with Epstein. Noam Chomsky met Epstein after conviction. Email shows regular contact. Tom Barrack, Trump inauguration chair. Email shows Barak sending child photos. Ehud Barak, former Israeli prime minister, stayed in Epstein's apartment. Tim Zagat, Zagat founder, diner with Epstein multiple times. Nathan Myhrvold, former Microsoft CTO, contributed to Epstein's birthday book and flight logs. Xing-Tung Yao, Harvard biologist, funded by Jeffrey. Prince Andrew, British royal, close friend, stayed at his properties. Thorbjørn Jagland, former Norwegian prime minister, emails shows discussion on Trump and planned visits to the island. Bill Clinton flew on the airplane 26 times. Epstein donated to the Clinton Foundation. Andres Pastrana, former Colombian president, flew to Cuba with Epstein. Bill Richardson, former New Mexico governor, accused by Joffre, visited Epstein's ranch and died in 2023. Patrick Leahy, former senator, donated to by Epstein. Henry Jarecki, psychiatrist, accused by victim of rape. Chuck Schumer, senator, donated to by Epstein. Louis Ranieri, dinner partner, Black Book, the father of mortgage-backed securities. Jack Lang, French politician, Lang's Foundation, funded by Epstein. Woody Allen, filmmaker, dined with Epstein and involved in the Black Book. Vitaly Churkin, Russian UN ambassador, met with Epstein, discussions on Trump. Sergei Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, Epstein offered insight on Trump via Lavrov. Catherine Remler, Goldman Sachs lawyer, 100 plus emails plus Epstein sent gifts. Randy Weingarten, AFT president. Mukesh Ambani, Reliance Industries chairman, Epstein visited his house. Ariane de Rothschild, banker, $25 million contract with Epstein's firm plus meetings. Alan Dershowitz, Epstein's lawyer, Harvard professor, accused by Joffre of abuse. Ken Starr, former Baylor president, also a lawyer, email shows they were friends. David Karp, founder of Tumblr, email shows Epstein connected Karp to Woody Allen. Fidel Castro, former Cuban leader, met Epstein, photo displayed in Epstein's mansion. Queen Elizabeth, former UK monarch, tied via Prince Andrew. Tony Blair, middle fart, heir to Norwegian monarchy, dated Epstein in the 90s, flew on the Lolita Express. David Gergen, former White House advisor, Harvard ties, met Epstein. Michael Ovitz, former Disney executive, subpoenaed in Epstein JP Morgan case, plus Black Book. Mabuto, former Congo dictator. Khashoggi, client and Saudi arms dealer. David Rockefeller, Epstein was on Rockefeller's university board. If the captain of a ship has to go down with the ship, Jeffrey did so gracefully while mentioning a whole network of people with their hands in many different sectors. While Epstein's own firm deals with cybertech solutions, AI, crypto, dark web servers, hacking, security, and managing shop websites for the elite, the impressive list of people he mentions seems to be aware of what Jeffrey brings to the table. He offers discretion, markets, assets, and livestock for many countries, politicians, and celebrities around the world. The moment he got caught, he prepared a WikiLeaks of his own, with a dead man's switch hidden inside the emails. Knowing his cover is blown as a spy on all fronts, he casually says, "If I die, ask these people some questions." Mind you, Maxwell was convicted of selling underage slaves to, quote, no one. But you see, Jeff was not going to go out without a bang. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. Some emails imply that he was working on using Alzheimer's and type 3 diabetes to create a weaponized germ to kill millions of people. Many major US medical schools knew this and supported him. Another email discusses human and baby cloning for their operations, confirming old circulating rumors that not only many celebrities in Hollywood may be clones at some point, but it's also used for sex slavery and organ harvesting plus cannibalism. Another email discusses Jeff wanting to acquire large amounts of Mormon blood on a weekly schedule. Another email goes into detail about the satanic rituals and how their abuse is justified and how it changes the human mind, the benefits of it, etc. Users on X starts drawing parallels between the TV show Stranger Things and the OA, the same type of experiments done to children in rural areas or the torture used to create psychics, very reminiscent of MKUltra and older human torture trials. More than one email confirms the discussion of tunnels under Epstein's properties. This made the Pizzagate crowd shout out about Comet Ping Pong's magical basement that didn't exist but then did again. Many emails from 2018 goes into detail with their fascination of making girls into boys and boys into girls, another layer of perversion to their already saturated lustful desires to make gender bender in between children look more sexualized. This confirms their paper trail and money to lots of Harvard research in both biology, psychology, and sciences. Jeff Bezos announced that he and his wife will be taking the next few months off sailing in the Atlantic Ocean. Good for you, Jeff. We can track you like an Amazon parcel better than you can yours. Larry Ellison, the owner of TikTok and Oracle founder, went ahead and bought a party island. JP Morgan shorted right before the bottom on the massive silver drop. And one of the biggest news coming from the release of the files is the origin of Bitcoin and the mystery man Satoshi Nakamoto and Jeffrey's involvement. Apparently, it's a love child creation of the NSA and CIA to provide invisible ways to traffic humans and other illegal goods. Mossad controls Bitcoin and Epstein funded the developers.
And I know who's behind Bitcoin. And it ain't some Japanese guy in a cave. I know the guy. And when that comes out, you heard it here first. Bitcoin is going to zero.
As Dan Pena said years ago, when the news come out that Epstein funded practically 75% of Bitcoin together with NSA and CIA for use in their business, plus coups in other countries and for war, it will surely go to zero very quickly. Both Bitcoin and Ethereum, together with many other coins, are in free fall since Friday, with current 7-day percentage change ranging from 12 to 22% minus. Several Bitcoin whales are dumping their assets. The Treasury removed trillions from the market this weekend. People on X already dubbed it the pedocoin, or by the children. It's a dirty coin made from slavery and coal power. Apart from flying to Africa with Epstein, Casey Wasserman, Clinton, and Kevin Spacey, the user Yakub NFT showed a discussion by Epstein to genetically engineer black people to make them smarter, rewarding long-term thinking over rapid muscle development. This isn't the only racist trope found in the emails. There's quite a lot of hatred for white people and for people outside a certain religion. We also find an email to Wolf showing us who was the original funder for the Steele dossier. It was Marco Rubio, the Russia hoax. User Noxy notes, is this why the DOJ isn't prosecuting? The Epstein trafficking ring is still running and being funded today, showing an email from February 2025. TMZ has been very quiet about the whole issue. Turns out the founder Harvey Levin is in the files, described as a good friend who were helpful in the global PR campaign to defending the convicted pedophile. An email from 2015 shows talk with Noam Chomsky about how they bailed out the French and German banks by punishing Greece. Dumbest billionaire Elon Musk is mentioned in the emails but never fully committing. On X, he defends himself saying that he declined invitations to the island every time, but old pictures from years ago shows that he had at least met Epstein and Maxwell. Users on X is calling out his double agent nonchalant style, saying he's more than implicit. This shows the motivation of his ketamine rage-infused posts from last year when he said that Trump and DOJ won't release the files due to them being in the files. And finally, the one who supposedly made all this happen by refusing to invade Iran and start a war, Prime Minister of the greatest ally in the Middle East, made DOJ release the files to show all the blackmail they've collected since the 70s. The new Federal Reserve chairman that Trump picked are mentioned in the emails. User The Patriotic Voice points out in his post that Trump is the perfect Trojan horse for Davis because Epstein says Davis can replace UN, cyber, crypto, genetics, international coordination, while also mentioning the Trilateral Commission. In the original DOJ files released on Friday, a lot of emails seems to implicate Trump taking part in the Calendar Girl show at Mar-a-Lago, but was later removed by the DOJ, but not before the internet saved a copy. Here's where it takes a dark turn, as the emails mentions threatening the girls who were about to be raped that they would be minced and used as fertilizer on the golf course. Users on X was also quick to point out one of their findings, that the current New York mayor is indeed a secret bastard child of Jeffrey. Community Notes was quick to try and point out that the pictures circulating were AI generated, but then an email confirmed it. In one email, Bill Gates is asking Jeffrey for advice after Bill's wife/husband contracted STDs from one of the foreign girls he provided, and in the email discusses how he can roofie the antibiotics into his partner. This is the same guy that told everyone to get vaccinated. In another email, they discuss pandemic simulations prior to 2019. Another email mentions a witness having been raped by George W. Bush and also witnessed a baby being cut into pieces. We are to expect an institutional shock with emergency level crisis in multiple countries at once. There will be parliamentary inquiries, impeachment processes, special prosecutors, and international tribunals. Cabinets will reshuffle, resignations for health reasons, sudden retirements, court proceedings, lots of national security classification. People will no longer agree on what institutions are real or legitimate, a fracture in trust. There will be surges in populist and anti-establishment movements globally, collapse of mainstream media credibility, fragmentation of political identity into conspiratorial versus institutional camps. There will be aggressive anti-corruption platforms, outside candidates winning elections, constitutional reform proposals, expanded surveillance justified as anti-trafficking or anti-elite corruption. Ironically, through history, scandals often produce more state power, not less. If intelligence agencies are implicated, rival states would weaponize the scandal in information warfare, alliances would strain but not immediately collapse, and intelligence cooperation would become more secretive, not more transparent. There are global risk-off events with equity sell-off, spike in volatility, flight to perceived safe assets. If major CEOs, banks, or tech founders were implicated, there will be board removals, emergency governance votes, lawsuits from shareholders, credit downgrades, class action litigation waves. Mass exposure of elite criminality would shatter meritocratic myths, intensify class resentment, accelerate online radical ecosystems, increase doomerism and nihilism in younger population. When people conclude the system is rigged at the top, they stop investing in long-term social contracts, which leads to consequences like lower birth rates, reduced civic participation, apathy, brain drain migration, underground economies expanding. Welcome to the new world, the end of the old world order, the global awakening, the revelation as a living gospel. Knowing all this about our former puppet masters, how will we decide the future? This is the beginning of the end.